A virgin bride was about to be burned, until a drunken cowboy fired into the air. Jace Carson had always been a man of few words. Out here, on the edge of human settlement, words didn't matter much. Actions did. He spent his days tending to his small ranch on the dusty plains of New Horizon, a frontier planet with twin suns that painted the sky in shades of gold and amber. Hovering drones patrolled the fields, checking on the genetically engineered livestock, while automated irrigation systems worked tirelessly to keep the crops alive. It was a quiet life, predictable and lonely, but it was the life he knew and the life he had chosen. Jace had never been the kind of man to seek company. Most people in the colony considered him stubborn, perhaps even a little rough. He didn't visit the small town often, preferring the company of his animals and the mechanical hum of his ranch. Yet, lately, the silence had begun to weigh on him. Nights were long, and the emptiness of his small cabin felt heavier than the twin suns' heat in the day. The colony's occasional gossip about lonely ranchers and mail-order brides had always seemed distant to him, but now it planted a small, persistent thought in his mind. It was in one of those quiet evenings, under the amber light of the setting suns, that Jace had written the letters. Letters meant for someone he had never met, someone who might want to join him on this remote frontier. He wrote about the ranch, about the simple pleasures of life here, and the small joys he found in tending to the fields and caring for the livestock. His handwriting was rough, practical, but honest. He did not pretend to be more than he was, a hard-working, solitary rancher in need of someone to share the silence and the stars. Weeks passed. Jace did not expect the arrival of the bride to be anything spectacular. He imagined a woman who could cook, clean, and maybe talk a little in the evenings. Someone modest, with practicality in her eyes. That was enough. The colony had spoken of mail-order brides as ordinary, reliable, simple women who fit well into frontier life. Nothing more. He had no reason to imagine otherwise. The morning of her arrival, Jace stood at the edge of the landing pad, dust swirling around his boots. The twin suns were rising, casting long shadows over the ranch. His hand rested on the edge of the railing, fingers tapping nervously. The humming of the transport ship grew louder, a sleek, silver craft descending from the sky. He adjusted his hat, straightened his shirt, and tried to breathe steadily. This moment felt heavier than any storm he had faced. The landing ramp lowered, and the hatch opened. Jace expected a woman who looked practical, who might blush under the sun or fidget with her hands. What he did not expect was Celine. Celine stepped onto the platform with a grace that seemed almost unnatural under the twin suns' harsh light. Her hair shimmered in the golden glow, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. She wore practical clothing, yes, but it was tailored, clean, and elegant in a way that made Jace's stomach tighten. She smiled at him politely, a faint but confident smile, and spoke with a clear, steady voice. "Good morning, Mr. Carson," she said. "I hope the journey was not too difficult." Jace blinked. He cleared his throat. "Morning. Welcome to the ranch," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. He looked at her again, really looked, and felt a strange combination of awe and nervousness. She was nothing like he had imagined. The colony's gossip about common mail-order brides echoed faintly in his mind, and he forced himself to push it aside. She was here, standing in front of him, smiling politely. That was all that mattered. Celine's eyes roamed the ranch with interest, taking in the hovering drones, the robotic caretakers of the livestock, and the wide fields stretching toward the horizon. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "I didn't realize the frontier could be so vast." Jace cleared his throat again. "It's not much," he muttered. "Just enough for work and quiet." Celine smiled again, tilting her head. "Quiet is a luxury, isn't it?" Her words caught him off guard. She spoke as if she understood, as if she valued the kind of solitude he had grown used to. He nodded, trying not to show how flustered he felt. The landing ramp hissed as the transport ship prepared to leave. Jace walked with her toward the cabin, his boots stirring dust in the morning air. She followed easily, adjusting her pace to match his. There was something natural in the way she moved, a quiet confidence that made the walk feel different from what he expected. Inside the cabin, Selena looked around with curiosity. She ran her fingers over the wooden table, examined the small kitchen, and glanced at the modest sleeping area. She spoke little, but her interest in the surroundings was clear. Jace felt himself relax slightly, though he still wondered if she would ever truly belong here. "I can help with the chores," Celine offered suddenly. "If you'd like." You mean it?" "Yes," she said simply. "I know it might be different from what you imagined, but I don't mind work. I can learn. I want to understand how life works here. Her words were unexpected, and Jace found himself smiling, a little awkwardly.
Most people don't. Most people...
They'd get tired or bored quickly. I am not most people, she said lightly, her eyes twinkling. And I think life here has its own kind of adventure. Adventure. Jace had not thought of it that way. To him, life here was routine, slow, predictable. But maybe there was another way to see it. Over the next few hours, they walked through the ranch together. Jace showed her the livestock drones, explaining how they worked, and Celine listened carefully, asking questions that revealed her intelligence. She pointed out ways the systems could be improved, suggesting small adjustments to the energy use and irrigation schedules. Jace listened, impressed, but also wary. She was capable, too capable, and he worried she would soon grow tired of the simplicity he offered. Not everyone appreciates efficiency, he said with a small laugh. Most people just want things to be easy. Easy is boring, she said. I like challenges. They make life interesting. Her words lingered in his mind. He had spent years avoiding challenges outside of the ranch. And yet, hearing her say that, he felt hopeful. Perhaps this would be different. Perhaps she would fit, not in the way he had imagined, but in a way that mattered more. By evening, the suns were setting, casting long shadows over the plains. Jace and Celine sat outside the cabin, watching the sky turn shades of pink and purple. The air was cooler now, and the quiet was broken only by the hum of drones returning to their stations. You've really built something here, Selena said softly. It's more than a ranch. It's a home. Jace felt a lump in his throat. He had never thought of it as a home before. Just work, just life. But maybe it could be something more, with her here. I guess, he said quietly, it's all I've got. And I'm glad you shared it with me. Jace wanted to believe her, but doubt lingered. She was too beautiful, too capable, too remarkable. Could someone like her really be happy out here, on a dusty frontier planet, far from the luxury and excitement she might be used to? That night, as they prepared for bed, Jace lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The cabin was quiet, but now it felt different. There was a presence beside him that changed the air, that shifted the rhythm of his life. He had waited for a bride, expecting someone ordinary, and yet here was someone extraordinary. He did not know what the future held. Perhaps it would be difficult. Perhaps she would leave, and he would be alone once more. But for the first time in years, he felt a spark of something he had almost forgotten. Hope. Outside, the twin moons began to rise, their pale light washing over the ranch. Jace finally closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the day settle into his bones. Tomorrow would come with work, with challenges, with the ordinary tasks of frontier life, but now it also carried a promise, the possibility of companionship, of discovery, of something unexpected, and for the first time, Jace Carson did not feel entirely alone. The next morning, the ranch woke to the steady hum of drones and the distant call of alien birds from the horizon. Jace rose early as always and found Celine already outside watching the fields with quiet interest. She had a notebook in hand, jotting down observations about the irrigation lines, the drone's patrol paths, and the placement of feeding stations for the livestock. Morning, Jace said, his voice rough but not unfriendly. Good morning, Selena replied, glancing up and smiling. I was thinking about the drone routes. Some of them overlap unnecessarily. You could save energy by adjusting their paths. Jace paused, leaning against the railing. He had been using the drones for years and had never thought of efficiency this way. Really? He asked. You think it matters? Bet. Oh, she said simply, her eyes bright with determination. Every bit of energy saved helps, especially out here. It might not seem like much, but over time it adds up. Her enthusiasm was surprising. Most people he had met in the colony would have seen drones as machines that worked well enough and left it at that. Celine, however, was curious, thoughtful, and willing to get involved. He hesitated for a moment, then asked, Want to help me check the south pasture? Some of the new cattle have been restless. Celine's face lit up. Of course. The south pasture stretched for several kilometers. The grass is a mix of soft green and golden stalks adapted to the planet's arid soil. Hovering drones floated above, scanning the fields and guiding the cattle toward the feeding stations. Jace led the way on his hoverbike, and Celine followed closely, her boots kicking up small puffs of dust. As they approached the cattle, Jace noticed Celine studying the behavior of the animals with careful attention. She crouched to inspect one of the younger calves, examining its movements and the placement of its tracking tag. See that? She said, pointing to a small electronic monitor on the calf's collar. It's reacting to the drone patterns. If we adjust the flight path slightly, they'll be calmer and feed more efficiently. Jace watched, impressed despite himself. I've never seen anyone notice that before. Celine smiled softly. I like to observe things. Life here is different, but it has rules, patterns, almost like a puzzle. They spent the morning adjusting drones, checking on livestock, and walking through the fields. Slowly, the awkwardness from her arrival began to fade. Jace found himself talking more, explaining the daily routines, the occasional storms, and the quirks of frontier ranch life. Celine listened carefully, asking questions and offering small suggestions. It wasn't that she was interfering, she was helping, learning, and bringing the spark of energy he hadn't realized he needed. By mid-afternoon, a gentle breeze swept across the ranch. The suns were high, and the air shimmered with heat. They rested under the shade of a rocky outcrop, sipping water from their canteens. You seem to understand this place faster than most, Jace said, his voice low. Celine laughed softly. I've always liked learning new things. Life on Earth is predictable, but here, it's alive. Every day brings something new. Jace nodded, watching the horizon. Most people would get scared out here. It's too quiet, too far from everything. She tilted her head. Scared? Maybe. But also free. There's space to grow, to think, to do things without someone telling you how. I like that. He couldn't help but smile. Her perspective was refreshing, even if it made him feel a little uncertain about himself. She was confident, smart, and far more capable than he had imagined. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden alert from one of the drones. A small malfunction had occurred in the northern water pump, the system that fed one of the smaller pastures. Jace sighed. I'll take care of it, he said, starting toward the machinery. No, let me come, Celine said, grabbing her toolkit from the hoverbike. I want to help. Jace hesitated, then nodded. All right. But it's not easy work. You ready? I can handle it. The water pump hummed, its metal panels warm to the touch under the sun's glare. Jace knelt beside the machinery, examining the circuits and valves, and Celine watched closely, handing him tools when needed. Her movements were precise, her attention focused, and she asked intelligent questions about the system. You see this valve here? Jace said. It controls flow to the upper tanks. If it's not adjusted properly, we'll lose water pressure to half the pasture. Celine nodded. I understand. Let me try adjusting it while you monitor the pressure sensors. Together they worked in silence, communicating with gestures, glances, and a few low words. In that quiet teamwork, Jace felt something unfamiliar. Partnership. For years he had worked alone, relying on his hands and his knowledge. But now, here was someone beside him, capable and willing to help, and somehow it made the work lighter, almost enjoyable. After an hour, the water pressure stabilized, the pump running smoothly. Jace leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked at Celine. She smiled, satisfied with her success. Not bad for a first try, he said, his voice carrying a hint of admiration. You make it easy to understand, she replied, laughing. It's easier when someone shows you the ropes. For the rest of the afternoon, they continued their rounds. They checked fences, adjusted feed dispensers, and even played a small game of herding the younger cattle into their pens using drones and hand signals. Celine laughed more freely now, and Jace felt a lightness in his chest he hadn't known for years. By evening, the suns were low, painting the sky in orange and violet. They returned to the cabin, tired but satisfied. Celine prepared a simple meal, using the ingredients Jace kept on hand. She moved with grace, chopping vegetables and stirring the stew, and he watched silently impressed. It wasn't just her beauty that struck him. It was her competence, her willingness to learn, and the quiet joy she seemed to take in small tasks. Over dinner, they talked more about their pasts. Jace spoke sparingly about life on New Horizon and his childhood on a distant, colder planet. Celine shared stories of her life on Earth, of crowded cities and strange customs, all delivered with a sense of wonder rather than complaint. You've had a different life, Jace said, breaking the silence. Yes, she said. But I've always wondered about places like this, about wide-open spaces and hard work that matters. I think that's why I agreed to come. He had expected a simple, quiet woman, someone who would accept his life as it was. Instead, he found someone curious, vibrant, and willing to embrace the unknown. As the twin moons rose over the horizon, casting soft light over the ranch, Jace felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. He liked her.
He respected her, and yet...
He worried she might not belong here, might grow tired of the simplicity, might leave him to the silence once more. Celine seemed to sense his thoughts. She placed a hand gently on his arm. You worry too much, she said softly. I'm here. That's enough for now. We'll figure out the rest together. Her words eased the knot in his chest. For the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, life with someone else wasn't something to fear. Maybe it could be better than he had ever imagined. That night, as Jace lay awake, he listened to the soft hum of the drones and the gentle rustling of the alien grasses outside. He thought about the day's work, the way Celine had learned so quickly, and the way her presence had changed the rhythm of the ranch. For the first time, he didn't feel entirely alone. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, and perhaps more surprises. But for now, he allowed himself to imagine a different future. A future where the ranch was no longer just a place of work and solitude, but a place of partnership, laughter, and discovery. And for the first time in years, Jace Carson went to sleep with a sense of hope. The following morning, the twin suns rose slowly over New Horizon, painting the sky with pale gold and soft orange hues. The ranch was already alive with activity. Hover drones buzzed over the fields, checking on the cattle and patrolling the fences. The robotic caretakers were moving along the irrigation lines, carrying water and supplies to different sectors. Jace had woken early, as he always did, and was inspecting the northern pasture. He had noticed a strange fluctuation in the water readings from the night before, something small but enough to catch his attention. He frowned as he studied the monitors. Just as he began to adjust the flow controls, Celine appeared, holding her notebook and wearing a determined expression. "Morning," she said softly. "I thought I'd start checking the south pasture today. The drones seemed off yesterday." Jace nodded, appreciating her initiative. "Good eye," he said. "Let's see what's going on." Together, they walked to the south pasture, noting the behavior of the livestock. A few of the younger cattle were restless, pacing in irregular patterns. Celine knelt beside one of the calves, observing carefully. "They're responding to something," she said. "Maybe a change in the drone patterns or the water supply. Their routine is disrupted." "Could be. Let's check the feeders and the water lines." "Something's off." They spent the morning inspecting the pasture. Celine's questions were intelligent, and her observations were precise. She suggested small adjustments to the drone's flight paths, which helped calm the cattle and improve the efficiency of their feeding. Jace was quietly impressed. She wasn't just beautiful, she was capable and thoughtful, someone who could adapt to frontier life faster than he could have imagined. By noon, they had completed the pasture rounds and returned to the cabin for a quick meal. Celine prepared a simple salad with some fresh vegetables from the greenhouse, while Jace poured 2 cups of warm tea. "You're making this easier than I expected," Jace said quietly, sitting across from her. Celine smiled, handing him a cup. "You make it easy to understand. The ranch is like a puzzle. Once you see the patterns, it's easier to work with." Jace looked at her, feeling a mix of admiration and uncertainty. "I didn't expect you to fit in so quickly," he admitted. "I didn't expect it either," she said lightly. "But it feels right. There's something about this place, and the work, and, well, I like it." Her words weren't just polite, they carried a sincerity that made him believe in them. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, a sudden alert interrupted their conversation. A small herd of cattle had wandered near the rocky cliffs at the edge of the northern pasture. The cliff's edge was unstable, and any misstep could cause the animals to fall. "Drones?" Jace asked quickly, already moving toward the control panel. "They're heading that way," Selena said. "We need to guide them back carefully." Jace mounted his hoverbike, and Celine followed on foot, holding a portable control device. The cattle were nervous, their movements erratic, but Celine remained calm, giving precise instructions. Together they guided the herd back towards safer ground, adjusting drone routes and using gentle hand signals. "Almost there," Celine called, her voice steady. "Left, now left. Good, good." Within minutes, the herd was safe, standing in the center of the pasture, calm once again. Jace dismounted, breathing heavily, and looked at Celine. She was smiling, her cheeks flushed from the effort. "You did well," he said quietly. "So did you," she replied. "We make a good team." Her words made him pause. He had worked alone for so long that the idea of a partner, someone who could share responsibilities, seemed foreign. But now, standing here, watching her confidence and skill, he realized that partnership could be something extraordinary. The rest of the day passed with routine chores, but something had shifted. Jace found himself paying more attention to Celine, noticing the way she moved, the way she thought, the way she quietly solved problems without fanfare. She was not just beautiful. She was capable, intelligent, and kind. Later, as the suns began to set, a small storm approached from the east. Dust and small debris whipped across the plains, and the wind picked up. Jace and Celine quickly secured the livestock and adjusted the drone patrols to guide animals to shelter. The storm was sudden but manageable, and together they worked efficiently, each anticipating the other's moves. Once the storm passed, they returned to the cabin, tired but satisfied. The evening was calm, the air fresh with the smell of rain and earth. They sat outside, watching the stars appear one by one, the twin moons casting a pale silver glow over the ranch. "You handled that well," Jay said, breaking the silence. "I didn't expect the storm to come so suddenly." Celine shrugged lightly. "Life here is full of surprises. You adapt or you get left behind. It's exciting, in a way." Jace smiled. "Exciting isn't a word I would have used for the ranch before you arrived. Maybe you're just realizing that it can be." They shared a quiet laugh, the tension of the day melting into a comfortable companionship. For the first time, Jace felt that the ranch was not just his life, but something they could share. The next morning brought another challenge. The energy readings from the solar panels were irregular, threatening to disrupt the power supply for the automated systems. Jace examined the monitors, frowning. He had dealt with faulty equipment before, but this was unusual. Celine joined him, her eyes scanning the control panels. "I can help," she said. "Let's check the connections and see if we can stabilize the system." Together they worked on the panels, identifying minor faults and making adjustments. Celine's technical knowledge complemented Jace's practical experience perfectly. The solar panels hummed steadily again, their energy readings returning to normal. "You really know your stuff," Jace said, leaning against the wall. "I've always liked figuring out how things work," Selena said simply. "I like challenges. And I like learning new skills." He nodded, feeling a sense of pride and relief. Her presence was not only helpful, it made the ranch stronger, more efficient, and more alive. As evening fell, Jace and Celine sat by the small fire pit outside the cabin. The air was cool, and the stars sparkled brightly in the clear sky. They talked about everything and nothing, the colonies, their favorite foods, stories from Earth, and the quirks of New Horizon. "I never thought I'd enjoy company out here," Jace admitted quietly. "I've been alone for so long, I forgot what it felt like to connect with someone." Celine reached out and placed her hand on his. "You don't have to be alone anymore," she said softly. "I'm here." That's what matters. Her words were simple, but they carried a depth that touched him. He felt a strange mixture of gratitude, admiration, and hope. Perhaps life on the frontier could be more than just survival. Perhaps it could be shared, enjoyed, and even cherished. The nights on New Horizon were long and quiet, but now they felt different. The hum of the drones, the gentle rustle of the alien grasses, and the soft glow of the twin moons created a sense of peace. Jace and Celine sat together, watching the stars, knowing that whatever challenges the frontier brought, they would face them side by side. For the first time, Jace realized that he didn't need to imagine a future alone. Selena had arrived, and with her came not just beauty and intelligence, but partnership, laughter, and hope. The ranch, which had once been a place of solitude and routine, had become a place of possibility. And as the twin moons rose higher, casting their pale light over the fields and pastures, Jace Carson felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of belonging, not just to the land but to someone else as well. The frontier was unpredictable, the work demanding, and the challenges constant. But with Celine by his side, he knew they could face anything. The life he had imagined, quiet, lonely, simple, was evolving into something richer, fuller, and far more extraordinary than he had ever expected. And for the first time, Jace Carson looked forward to the future, knowing that he would not face it alone. The morning air was crisp on New Horizon, with the twin suns rising slowly over the vast plains. Jace Carson stepped outside, stretching his arms as he took in the familiar sight of the ranch. But this morning felt different. There was a quiet energy in the air, a sense of change waiting to unfold. Celine was already outside, kneeling beside the water reservoir, checking its levels. She looked up as Jace approached, a small smile on her face. "Good morning," she said softly. "Morning," Jace replied, tipping his hat. "Everything running smoothly?" "For now," Celine said. "But I was thinking we could check the energy grids today. The solar panels seem fine, but there are minor fluctuations in the storage units." Jace nodded. Her diligence never ceased to impress him. Where he once handled everything alone, now he found himself relying on her insight, appreciating the way her mind worked alongside his own. They spent the morning inspecting the solar arrays, adjusting connections, and monitoring energy storage. Celine's presence made the work efficient and even enjoyable. Jace found himself laughing more often, sharing small stories about past storms, livestock mishaps, and the quirks of living on a frontier planet. "You've really changed this place," Jace said quietly as they paused for a short break. "I didn't realize how much someone could affect the ranch." Celine wiped her hands on her trousers, glancing at him. "I didn't come here to change things," she said gently. "I came to help, but it feels right working together." Jace nodded, feeling warmth in his chest. It wasn't just her help, it was her presence, her willingness to share the challenges, her quiet understanding. For the first time in years, he felt that the ranch wasn't just his world, it was theirs. Later that afternoon, a small transport ship appeared on the horizon, heading toward the landing pad. Jace squinted, noticing the markings of a colony trader. The ship landed smoothly, and a man in a polished uniform stepped out. "Jace Carson?" the man asked, scanning a small tablet. "I have a message for your guest, Celine." Celine approached, curious but composed. The man handed her a holo message. She activated it, and a voice echoed in the air, clear and confident. "Celine, we received your request for relocation. We can provide you with accommodations in the central colonies with opportunities for work, education, and a comfortable life. Please let us know your decision." Jace felt a tight knot in his stomach. He had expected challenges in frontier life, storms, equipment failures, and restless cattle. But this was different. A choice. She could leave. She could go back to the central colonies, return to a life of comfort, luxury, and opportunity. Celine deactivated the message, her face calm but thoughtful. "I need to consider this," she said softly. Jace's chest tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but words failed him. He had spent years alone, building walls around himself. And now, faced with the possibility of losing her, he realized how much he had come to rely on her presence, how much he had grown to care for her. Celine looked at him, her eyes meeting his. "Jace," she said gently, "I didn't expect to feel this way about frontier life, but I do. I care about this place, and I care about you." He had never been good with words, but he knew he couldn't let her go without telling her the truth. "Celine, I don't want you to leave. I don't know if I'm the kind of man someone like you deserves, but this ranch, this life, it's better with you in it. You make it better. Me better." Her hand reached for his, holding it firmly. "And I feel the same way. This place, this work, it's challenging, yes, but it's ours. And I want to face it together, not somewhere else." He realized he had feared her leaving not because he wanted to control her, but because he had discovered that he didn't want to face life without her. The days that followed were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Jace and Celine worked side by side, repairing fences, adjusting drones, and tending to the livestock. Each task, from the smallest repair to the largest pasture check, became an opportunity to share laughter, knowledge, and quiet companionship. One morning, a minor challenge tested them further. The automated feeders in the eastern pasture malfunctioned, stopping mid-feed. Cattle grew restless, their movements uneven. Jace mounted his hoverbike, and Celine followed with her toolkit. Together they assessed the situation, identified a minor electrical fault, and corrected it. "It's impressive," Jace said quietly as they worked. "You handle these things as if you've been here all your life." Celine smiled. "I learn fast when it matters. And when I have someone to guide me, even better." Their teamwork became seamless, almost instinctive. They could anticipate each other's needs, movements, and decisions. For Jace, who had spent years relying only on himself, this partnership was a revelation. He realized that life could be shared without losing independence, that companionship did not mean weakness. Evenings were now filled with quiet conversations under the twin moons. They discussed the day's work, plans for the future, and small dreams they had long ignored. Jace shared stories of storms and livestock adventures. Celine spoke of inventions, new techniques, and her fascination with alien flora and fauna.
One night, as they watched the stars, Jace broke the comfortable silence.
"You know, I always imagined this life would be quiet and lonely. I thought I'd be fine on my own." Celine turned to him, her eyes gentle. "And?" Jace hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I was wrong. Life is better with someone beside you. With you." Celine smiled, leaning her head slightly against his shoulder. "I'm glad I came here. I never expected to feel so connected to this place or to you." The frontier was still vast, unpredictable, and challenging. Storms could come without warning, drones could fail, and livestock could wander off. But with Selene by his side, Jace felt ready for anything. They had faced challenges together, learned from each other, and discovered that partnership could make life richer, more joyful, and more meaningful. In the following weeks, the ranch began to feel alive in new ways. Selene suggested small improvements to the irrigation system, experimented with planting new crops suited to New Horizons soil, and even designed minor modifications to the drones to make them more efficient. Jace marveled at her ingenuity, realizing that her arrival had transformed the ranch into something greater than he had ever imagined. Yet it wasn't just the work that changed. Their bond deepened with shared laughter, quiet evenings, and mutual respect. They discovered joy in ordinary tasks, the rhythm of feeding cattle, repairing fences, or simply watching the twin suns rise over the plains. One afternoon, as they finished their rounds, Jace looked at Selene, feeling a mix of pride, affection, and wonder. "You've made this place better. You've made me better." Selene reached for his hand, smiling. "And you've shown me a life I never knew I wanted, a life worth staying for." The suns dipped low, casting golden light over the fields and pastures. The cattle grazed calmly, the drones hovered in their patrols, and the ranch stood quiet but alive. Jace and Selene stood together, hand in hand, looking over the land they had nurtured and protected. "Whatever comes next," Jace said softly, "we face it together. Agreed?" "Agreed," Selene said, her voice steady, full of warmth. And so the loner rancher and the woman too beautiful for him, at least in his own mind, found a life together. Not perfect, not always easy, but full of shared effort, trust, and care. They had discovered that the frontier was not only a place of work and solitude, but also a place of love, partnership, and unexpected joy. As the twin moons rose once again, casting a pale glow over the ranch, Jace felt a quiet peace settle over him. He had waited for a companion, unsure of what would arrive. He had imagined simplicity. Instead, he had found brilliance, kindness, and a partnership that made every sunrise brighter and every challenge lighter. Life on New Horizon would continue to bring surprises, storms, and lessons, but now Jace Carson knew that no matter what came next, he would not face it alone. Selene was here, and together they had created a home, a ranch, and a future neither had expected, but both had dreamed of in their own way. And as the stars sparkled over the alien plains, the hum of the drones filled the quiet night, and the twin moons reflected off the fields, Jace finally smiled, feeling a sense of completeness he had long thought impossible.